All right. Um, some of these are pretty broad, so they may not all work. But describe who you are today.
I'm a home teacher, grandfather and great-grandfather, and a very devoted, faithful husband. I'm so committed to your mother, not just because she now has a serious illness, but just over the years that I've become more and more devoted to her as a kindly, good person. My children don't have to worry about me being active in the church, my descendants. I try to be very fair and open with anybody who I deal with. And other than that, I guess my life speaks for itself. It's hard. It's hard to. It's hard to brag about yourself. That's kind of not my nature, I guess. Although I recognize that there is a vanity about me. I love to be in the center of the stage. I love to be in charge. I love to be the final authority. But I'm perfectly content when I'm not any of those. But that's kind of my summary of who I am. I still would love to have a cow ranch. I never did learn how to rope, but I could do everything else. And I can make one work and pay off and enjoy being there. And I suppose that's my best definition of me as a grandparent, or as a father, or as a friend. That's it.
How do you think you're different than you were, say, 10 years ago or 30 years ago?
30 years ago, I was involved very deeply in church responsibilities and opportunities, and now I'm not. And I don't resent that. I wish I would. I've had a had a desire, or whatever it is, all my adult life. I had an experience way back in Gilbert Ward when we'd only been there for 2 or 3 years. I was the gospel doctrine teacher, and I so thoroughly enjoyed that. And I've often thought that if somebody ever asked me what church job would you like to have, that's what I would tell them. But I guess I'm too old for that now. They're afraid I'd get into politics, so they don't let me teach them. I don't remember what your question was, but...
No, you answered it.
All right.
What are some of the challenges of the age you are now?
Of being on the sideline. I still enjoy the decision-making thing of being able to be helpful and to speak up and etc. And I don't feel comfortable doing that anymore in my current station and status. So one of my challenges is to not complain and not feel sorry for myself or anything else, and just be a good home teacher and a good grandfather, and manage my money properly. We're on a day now where you heard the phone conversation this morning. Yeah, you were there. That's a momentous thing that's about to happen to our family, Jordan. That's a huge boost. And that's not something that I merited or worked for to acquire, but I did make it possible by doing what was necessary to get the subdivision near enough. But I don't consider, I consider that if there is a success in this on the part of your mother and I, most of it is simply we were here at the right time in the right place and didn't make dumb decisions. I better go to the door.
All right. What has surprised you about this phase of your life?
Probably my biggest surprise is physical. I can't, it's hard for me to get involved in exercising. And I know I should, but I don't want to. I'm lazy. I'd rather sit and read a book or watch the news on television. Probably the biggest surprise about this time in my life is how much evil there is among public-spirited men. Yeah. President Kennedy was an excellent leader. He was a spellbinder, and yet he was an immoral bounder. My dad thought that he and his brother Bobby were both taken out of the picture by the Lord interceding because they were dangerous to our country. They were, people responded to them, rallied around them. I remember one of the jokes was, how do you find when Kennedy was president, how do you find the White House? You go to Harvard and turn left. Anyway, your question raised some ideas in my mind that took me off on a tangent.
That's all right.
I remember once I was invited to speak at the graveside service of a little brand new baby that only lived 2 or 3 days. And I remember a thing that happened, that when they called on me to, the mother and father were, it was Max and Angie Hancock's daughter who had this little child that died so quickly. And as they called on me as it my turn, they invited me to stand. This was at the graveyard. And there was a big jet airliner in the background. And I remember thinking to myself and making this point to everybody, here's this little child who came onto the scene, made a brief noise, and then is gone. And then I quoted some scripture to them about what happens to children who die under the age of 8. And it was a very short little service, but I remember that airplane taking the center of the stage for a few moments there. And a lot of things in this life are like that there. They don't take up much time. I've even forgotten what your question was now. If you want to ask it again, feel free to do so.
You gave a great answer.
All right. That's close enough, huh?
Tell me about the transition from full-time to part-time to retired.
The transition was largely motivated by I had to be then, and I still have to be totally honest with myself. I remember thinking early on when I was 35, 40, along in there, that I had a good mind. I could think things through. I could express myself well. People would listen. and gradually that you lose that as you get older. But the main thing that caused me to finally fully retire as an attorney, early on somebody told me, I heard the conversation or something, that as an attorney you can practice for a long time because you have the wisdom of all your years. I discovered somewhere along the line, a couple of years before I finally retired and took my name off the wall, that it was dangerous for me to represent somebody because I was a little more forgetful. My mind didn't work quite as smoothly as it used to, and so I'm performing a disservice to people to keep trying to help them when I shouldn't. I need to get out of the way. And so very quickly, your mother and I, in view of her health, I'm so glad we have now done this. And very candidly, Jordan, I don't know how long she's going to live. She may survive this much longer than me. This could go away, but I don't think it's going to. I think it's going to be a challenge to both of us, and I don't worry greatly about that. Maybe I should, but I'm not. I think I already told you, she and I had a very deep private conversation last night about our status and our future, and I'm at peace with all of that. And I never felt closer to in my life than I do right now. She's pretty skinny. She doesn't walk very sprightly anymore, but she's still got a keen mind, and we still make a good team together. And I wouldn't have missed it for all the tea in China or whatever the great blessings are that are possible. I read recently that Mitt Romney has managed businesses and is now worth over $100 million, and I wouldn't know what to do with that kind of success. I think I would shrivel and go hide in the corner. But there we are. You have gathered by now my answers are not precise. I wander, and if you don't want me to, you'll tell me, and until you tell me, I will wander.
That's the way memories work.
That's right.
I'm happy to hear all the wandering. What was the hardest part of the transition from full-time to retirement?
There wasn't a hard part. I guess the hardest part was to take my name off the door up at the office. And we came to the time where we just quit going back there. Always before, we would be up there by 8:30, and we would take care of the little things we knew we had to do, and etc. But it was not difficult to go into full retirement. I've read a good number of Louis L'Amour books that I didn't have time to read before. And here's your old friend, my old friend, what's her name? Lee Allen's wife. She's come, I saw her coming to visit your mother.
What else do you do now that you had put off when you were working full-time?
I do a lot of thinking and stewing. For instance, I finally reached the conclusion that I need to be involved because I can be helpful. There's a water supply about 25 miles from here. It's 9,000 gallons a minute, which is a lot of water. And it's as pure a drinking water as you can ever get. And the people up here are not responding, so I went to the leaders up here. I went to the owners of that water, and who I know very well. Their last name is Bryce, and and I offered to be helpful. I said, I don't want to be your attorney to make any money. I just think maybe there's some things I can do to be helpful. And so they've talked that over, and they've agreed to let me represent them as an attorney first of all, with the city of Safford, and find out what the score is, because I think it's just a matter of, with the houses being built here now, we're going to need more drinking water, and it doesn't get any better than this. It's a large quantity. It's not that far away. The costs of getting it here are not going to be prohibitive. It's just a great thing, and so I'm just now going to be involved in that. What else?
What do you really enjoy doing?
Now?
Yeah.
Thinking things through, trying to arrive at a solution, how to be helpful to other people, how to not be the center of the stage anymore, because I need to not do that. If I have something good to contribute, I need to say it, but don't get carried away. That's pretty vague, wasn't it?
That was good. What do you enjoy more today than you used to?
I don't know. I can't think of anything
That's all right.
that I enjoy more now than I used to. I know there's some things I would still like to do.
You need this.
Hello, Colleen.
Hi, Ken. Oh, I didn't see somebody else there.
Hi.
This is our last child. This is Jordan. Turn it out again.
All right.
One of my biggest challenges, there is a confrontation between your mother and your grandmother. Your mother's used to being the head of the house, and your grandmother is reached a point where she speaks first and without thinking, and is quite cutting at times. and my role is to try to swim through that and keep it at relatively peace. I find myself on a regular basis saying, Leona, and she knows what I'm getting at. When I do it like that, her mother can't hear it.
Right.
Now, Colin said, buy another house and move out and leave her, and Leona laughed, said, we can't do that. She would be deeply offended and mad at us, so we can't do that. But candidly, I don't know how much longer she's going to live, but I can see a steady deterioration. Not mentally, she's still sharp as a tack, but physically, she's all of a sudden one of these days she's going to fade away and be gone, and it'll be a great blessing for her. She's very smart. But right now she doesn't have the self-discipline to not hurt people's feelings by being blunt.
Yeah.
So that's one of my interesting challenges.
Mm-hmm. What would you do in an ideal day if there were no limitations?
I would drive up on the back road that leaves from Central. Go up this cow ranch I've looked at several times. It's very small. I keep trying to talk to the woman to let me develop it for her, because I think I would enjoy doing that. She doesn't quite know what she wants to do. But if that were possible, I would do that. I would do that. So it's got a windmill that has fallen down on itself that I'd have to pick up. I would need to run power line out there. Need to build a road, put in a piece of pipeline, you know, a lot of fence work. Hire all that kind of stuff done. I know how to make that stuff work. I don't do it much anymore. I'm too slow, and I'm not as strong. I'm quite a bit weaker physically, and but I still can think things through and come to a relatively good conclusion. And as I've said all that, I've forgotten what the question was.
You answered it. What would be your ideal day?
It would be to work on something like that.
Yep.
Or write a series of checks for all my children. I better get ready. They may come and want to hand me a bunch of money here, and I better be ready to know what to do with it. And that's unbelievable that suddenly for this piece of farmland here, we're going to get that much money.
Yep.
Huh.
That was the Jim Carpenter purchase way back when, huh?
Yeah. And let me reminisce about something of that. There was between us and, you know, where the Dodges live across the field here, on our side of the fence, there used to be a little, I think there was a little wooden house up there off the road away, off the north of or south of the canal, and a little road that went up to it. And Joe McClellan and Tilly lived where the Dodges are now. That was just a big pecan orchard. And he and Grandpa Carpenter got together and taught the owner of the piece of farmland, I think there was 6 or 8 acres or something, and Grandpa was renting it from him. And he got old enough that he needed to sell, so these two men got together and straightened out their fence, and Joe McClellan bought part of it, and Grandpa bought the rest of it. And but I vaguely remember that little wooden house up there that was it was not very solid. But the guy's name was Tot Posey. There was another one that lived right here just beyond the Smiths on this side of the canal. And his name was Skicky Benskin. And, oh dear. How come I remember that? Huh.
Who would you like to see again? What would you do?
I would like to see my mother when she wasn't so incapacitated as she became in her last. It took her about 8 years to die, Jordan. She just shriveled away to nothing. She had Parkinson's, and she didn't shake much. She just got weak. And after a while, what finally took her life, the muscles in her rib cage that cause you to breathe, they were affected by the Parkinson's, and she slowly just suffocated, literally. I would love to see her again. She was all my life, she was a positive influence on me. That's close enough for that question.
Okay. What do you allow yourself now that you did not in the past?
Laziness. I allow myself to sit and watch the news. And if there's an old rebroadcast of the BYU sports event, I watch that. and I do a lot of planning about when we can. I want to add a back room on this house and put a garage here, and I want to get the camper sold or given away or whatever. Huh.
Are there things that you ask of yourself that you wish you could let go of?
Not that I can think of, Jordan. If it's unpleasant, I don't ask it of myself. It's kind of that simple.
Mm-hmm. What changes and priorities have you made for this time of your life?
Of being content to not be in the limelight. For a long time, I was the head of something. I was the stake president. I was a regional representative. I was the temple president. I was whatever. And there's time to let go of all of that. And I've been able to do that. Those were great experiences, but I need to now not be a nuisance.
What goes through your mind during wakeful nights?
I don't have any wakeful nights. Once in a while I used to, but I don't much anymore. And
who do you turn to for comfort and guidance?
my wife. And reading in the scriptures, and I don't pray long, diligent prayers, but I pray privately by myself on a regular basis, and I have good ideas come to me during that time. And for the last 2 years, my most fervent prayer is, please bless my dear wife. I think I sensed that something was coming to her. And I don't know if I was prepared for it, but I didn't need to be. And Marcy's coming in the door now. I saw her walk up.
What are the sights or sounds or scents that set off memories for you?
Let me see. Only 6. I don't know. Let me ask her. I'm thinking you're going to want it quickly, but
A sunrise.
hold on.
I still am always excited every morning that the sun came up again. It didn't go somewhere else last
Where
night.
did Mom go?
I think
still in
she's
there?
still in there.
Waiting for me?
I don't know. Look and see.
Okay.
And I have great pleasure come to me when I see my little grandchildren doing well. I love to watch Emily Gordon play basketball or volleyball. She's not a spectacular player, but she's very steady and very dependable. It's so interesting. And so on. I love the success that Michael Favreau has had with Honeywell. And his wife is a very dear person, and their new little baby. I tease her now. I say now, when I come here, I never can remember, am I supposed to wash my hands with soap or wash my mouth out with soap? And she always tells me what it is.
Oh, I see.
And I hope that Doug Udall is able to find a good woman. he was kind of cheated. She wasn't on. She didn't tell him the truth or something.
What comes to mind when you say, I can still hear the sound of
the bulldozer starting up? When you first turn it on, it's running. They have a 1 gallon gas tank, and there's a compression lever you pull out, and because the gasoline engine runs on much lower compression, and so that's when you start that old TD20. You start it on gasoline and get the heads warmed up, and then you shift it over to diesel. And when you do, you pull up the throttle and shove in the compression lever so that suddenly the compression is enough that it'll fire the diesel. And that sound, the deep rumble of that old TD20 had a 6-cylinder engine that was as long as my car almost. They were big, and they, went up and down much faster than this. And there was something about that. Each time when I would start that thing, I would almost revel in that sound and the feeling of that. And yeah, that was I really got caught up in doing that, Jordan. It was almost an obsession with me to go build another road, to make a new dirt tank, to do something.
You got a lot done on that thing.
I did.
What do you feel you are still learning today?
There's still a lot to learn about God. I think about that. How is it possible for there to be a being who is familiar with the entire existence of what's out there? I remember saying to a bunch of Boy Scouts once, I got them all to lay on the ground with me, and we were on a scout trip somewhere, and I pointed out to them what's called the Horse and Rider. In the tail of the Big Dipper, one of those stars, I can't remember which one, just a little ways away from it, there's a very tiny, it's the smallest thing you can see with the naked eye is that little tiny star. And I remember getting them to think, now, how far out is it to that? And they'd talk about that for a few minutes, and we had no idea how far it was. And then I would say to them, what's on the other side of that? And I got a lot of good speculation on their part, but it made them think. And to contemplate that there is a being, and I'm created in His image and in His likeness, and have the potential. If I knew what that potential was, I think it would be detrimental to me. I need to not know that yet. But there is a greatness about Him that is fascinating to me. I could never doubt the truthfulness of the things Joseph Smith reported. And I find this new book the church has put out now on Joseph Smith is better reading than Louis L'Amour. It's very fascinating.
Who would you say your teachers are today?
My wife, my children, my grandchildren, their spouses. We have a good gospel doctrine teacher now.
What's something that you've learned in the last 5 years that has surprised you?
That I am not omnipotent. I thought I was the smartest man in the world, Jordan. I never told anybody else that, not even your mother. But I had great supreme self-confidence. And I find now that there are others who are smarter than me. And I can accept that very, very graciously now. My dad made a serious mistake in his life. He married a battle axe. He told me, after my mother died, he told me that he and she talked to each other like 5-year-old kids, that she was really harsh. I really didn't care to be around her much. She was such a, whatever. He said once, he hinted at this, he said he would get a divorce except it was not acceptable anymore in the church. He stayed with it. He got in a hurry. I think that would scare me to death. You get so used to your wife, and you don't want to ever even think about somebody else. Oh, candidly, I thought, well, worst came to worst, if I really needed to find another wife, I might look around a little bit, but that would scare me. She'd probably be a dud. Whatever the question was, that's the end of that.
All right. What are you exploring? What is an adventure for you?
This cow ranch up here. And now, in the last few days, the water supply down the valley of Geronimo.
Did you need something? So,
What gets your creativity going?
Those things I just said.
okay, you tell him.
I think my mother-in-law's coming.
You hear Mr. Walker?
Yeah. Hello, Grandma.
Hello. You know, it's 12 o'clock and I haven't gotten my mail yet. Whose pictures is that going to be? Grandma Jessie and all? Or Grandma, her mother?
Which pictures?
Well, on the table, you've got them labeled Grandma Udall pictures.
What feels unfinished?
Those things I just said. and I would love to spend a few more days on my little bulldozer out there doing something.
Yeah.
Cleaning a dirt tank, building a road, whatever. Probably won't. I'm physically quite weakened now, Jordan, and too lazy to go do the exercises to keep that physical capacity in place.
What if you hired someone to go with you?
I've thought of that if I get into this ranch, I'd have to hire most of the things done.
Even the time on the bulldozer, you could have someone out there with you.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good time.
One of the sad things, years ago, I was a home teacher to a guy named Ray Farron. And he now lives in Pima. He's 97 or something. And he and a good friend of his, I can't remember the friend's name, they owned an old International bulldozer together. It was a smaller one than the one I had. And they were working on somebody's push some trees down or something down to Pima. And Ray pushed it to the end as far as he needed to. And then he was going to back up, and he turned around as he started to back up. His friend was behind him and didn't really, and he drove over him, just smashed him flat. And I never did talk to Ray about it. In fact, I didn't see him ever. But I thought, I now have a phobia about little Curtis. I have to be very careful that I never back out of here without making sure that he's not out there. My dad's only full sister, Aunt Pauline Smith, she backed over one of her grandchildren and killed it. And what a tragedy that was.
Yeah. Okay, you've got 5 wishes. They will all come true. What are they?
Your mother be fully recovered. Get all of her hair back. Number 2. Outlive me. Number 3. And you children all stay close to the church. And what's number 5? And let there be peace on earth. And let it begin with me. That's a song, I think. I am shocked at the evil that there is in this world. This basketball coach here that apparently turned out to be a child molester. Gosh sake, that's frightening to me.
What do you have faith in?
Obviously, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind, I have faith in the Lord, in God and His Son, Jesus Christ. I have faith in President Hinckley and the brethren of the church. There are some of the church leaders I would rather listen to than any of the rest of them, but that's not important. That doesn't matter. Elder Oaks and Elder Packer, those are 2 of my favorite speakers. I love to listen to them. I have faith in my country, in people who have positions of responsibility. Whatever that was.
This is optional. Tell a story from your life that you've never told before.
All right, I'll tell you one. I had when we still had the old ranch north of Phoenix on the Alfrea River, I had explored a place where I would hope to build a dirt tank. And I had determined, I'd ridden it out on horseback and etc. I had determined that I could get in there all right. There was one place where I had to drive across a rock slide looking thing. It was flat rock, nothing else on it. And it sloped about like that. And So, and I had to cross that, and it was about twice as long as the bulldozer tracks were. And so I was always a supremely. If I looked over something and figured, well, I can make that work, I went ahead and tried it. And I started to cross there, and we got about halfway across that thing, and all of a sudden the whole bulldozer moved about a foot like that. And on this side it went down, not straight, but about like that. And if that had kept going, I would not have been able to get off of that thing, and I'm sure I'd have been wrapped up in that bulldozer. Anyway, when it first slid, I pushed the clutch forward so that it stopped. It still moved a little bit more, and I got off of there on my so fast that I was off of it. It could now slide off if it wanted to. It took me a half hour to get up enough courage to get on that thing again. Finally, what I did, I leaned way over on this side, standing on one of the big arms where the bulldozer blade was, and I pulled the clutch back, moved forward about 6 inches, and then stopped. Got off again. See what it would do. After a while, I moved a foot, and then I moved 2 feet. Pretty soon, I was off of there, and I was going on. I was nonchalant, like I'd never been frightened, but that scared the dickens out of me. I could just, I was up there all alone. Nobody else was down at the tip top where I was living. They'd not have known I was down there for 2 or 3 days till somebody came looking for me, and that really it frightened me clear to the depth of my soul. I don't know how dangerous it was, but I know how dangerous it felt at that moment. And I had a horse and a pack animal of some kind. And I would put 20 gallons of diesel fuel on this pack animal and tie it down good. And I had a little a gallon bottle of gas I'd take with me every morning when I went to start this crawler. And so I didn't go much farther that day. I was too shook up. I went and got I'd already poured the diesel into the crawler. So I went and got my horse and my pack animal. I can't remember what I had, whether it's another horse or a burro or a mule or just what. And by 3 o'clock I was back to Tip Top, and I had the windows closed and the fire going. And by the next morning I was over it, and I was able to get up there and go on. Lots of memories come back to me from that cattle ranch experience, Jordan. I was caught up in it. I was part of it. I was the heart of it. I had to make it work. I had to make decisions that were intelligent. And I was caught up in it. I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. It was about as far from law school as I could get. What was the question again?
You answered it.
I told you of an experience.
Yes.
All right.
Now, my last question. What are you looking forward to?
My wife being reasonably healthy. That's more important than everything else. And I trust the Lord that whatever will be, will be. And whatever it is, I will be all right with it. How can I ever help her to explain how valuable she's been to me? and to you kids. I don't think I can. I don't know if I will even try, but I made a New Year's revolution that I'm going to treat her as nice and as good as I know how, and make her. She may only live another couple of years, and she may be gone in a few months. But whatever it is, I'm going to try to make it the best that I can. And you see by now that she's very pleasant, friendly, nice girl, nice woman, nice mother, nice grandmother, nice great-grandmother. I doubt if she'll ever be a great-great-grandmother like Grandma Carpenter is, but that's the end of whatever your question was.
Very good. One more to go.